Hey everybody, it's Friday. We made it. Welcome to the show. Stay tuned until the end of the show because I want to discuss an opportunity with you guys that maybe one of you will be able to take part in. I do have someone who's interested in it. I don't want to disclose all their personal information and stuff. We do have someone that is interested in the opportunity, and it's regarding France. Hopefully that will work out for her. But this was kind of the plan from the beginning with being in France when I was there for a year and a half, was to have people come out and just be able to enjoy just being kind of off the grid for a while, just being able to disappear for a while. Now, all people aren't going to be able to do this, but the type of person that would be able to do something like this would be someone that's on some sort of fixed income. Maybe you're retired and you wouldn't mind going and hanging out in France for a year or 6 months or however long you want. Now, there's two properties, so, it's an opportunity. And I'll discuss that at the end of the show. I don't want to kind of give it all away now, but I want to go into some detail and discuss with you that opportunity at the end of the show. This isn't some kind of a scam or anything. It's basically if you've got about $300 a month and you want to go and hang out in France on Mark's properties, and the $300 basically just covers the utilities, you can do that. Okay, that's still open. Now, I'm not there anymore, of course, so I'll give you some of the details of that. But back to the show topic for today. And over the last few days, I've been looking at these two key dates. March 13th, Friday the 13th, and here it is here, and October 20th and 21st, give or take a day, because of, leap years and how days fall and things like this. But the reason why we're going to look at these two dates, and I'm going to keep this very, very simple, is because these two dates are opposite each other on the calendar. We've talked about calendar dates having a mirror counterpart opposite date. In this case, March 13th and October 20th are mirror dates of one another. Why? Because March 13th is the 72nd day of the year, and October 20th has 72 days until the end of the year. That would make them mirror dates. And you can do this for any date on the calendar. You can look at the date and then find its mirror. Okay, it's very, very simple to do. So, what I found regarding these two dates is chilling. March, Friday the 13th. Remember, one of these dates we just talked about. Trump declared a national emergency because of the Corona virus, right? Here it is here, March 13th, 2020. Why did he pick Friday the 13th to do this? Well, that's what we're going to go into right now. Because what happens when a national state of emergency is declared, automatically many of your rights are suspended. This side of the Atlantic. The moment the president declares a national emergency, decision that is entirely within his discretion, he is able to set aside many of the legal limits on his own authority. So, the president gets more power. And everyone seems to get lost in the finger pointing, the right-left paradigm. We want to forget that the president did this, which opened the door to the loss of our rights, which we are experiencing right now. The ability to say to someone, you have to do this or that because of this, right? Now, on the counterpart date, remember, the mirror date, Trump will be enforcing the Real ID Act, the National ID Act. October 21st is the deadline. Here on the military benefits website, as part of the CARES Act 2020, the Department of Homeland Security extended the Real ID enforcement deadline to October 21st. Oh, this is 2021. Again, these are mirror dates of one another. Now, the original deadline for the Real ID Act was October 20th or 21st, 2020. It now has been moved up to October 1st. So, you have to ask yourself, were these two actions done on opposite dates intentionally? Well, that's what we're going to dig in today, because something very weird happened 33 years ago. A different kind of iris was created in Jerusalem. We're going to call it Jerome Salem, because even that word triggers these algorithms, right? And it was called the Jerome Shalom Friday the 13th computer iris. Now, here it is here, and this was 33 years ago, and it was not on Friday the 13th, but it was called the Friday the 13th virus, Cyrus, because it was set to go off every Friday the 13th, except for the year 1987. That was 33 years ago. Now, some sources say that this was created in 1988. Regardless, almost all the sources say that it was created to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the Juice Club state. Now, the Jerome Shalom iris was known as the Friday the 13th iris. Why is that? Again, because it was activated on Friday the 13th. It was set to go off every Friday the 13th. So remember, Trump declared the national emergency on Friday the 13th of March, 33 years after this Cyrus was put into effect. So, how does all this fit into what's going on? Well, what it seems to suggest is there is a connection between the date, Friday the 13th, and irises, or Cyruses we call them. Now, if you look at the Wikipedia article on the Jerome Shalom iris, there are variants to it, okay? One of those variants is called Omega. We find that. I'll show it to you. It's actually an alias. The name could be referred to, it's the Friday the 13th 440/Omega. Okay. Now this is important because I pulled this up. Here's the variant here, or the alias. It's also malware. And we did a video on a film called The Omega Man, which was Apollo. What do you mean, Casey? Well, there were actually two films, I Am Legend and Omega Man. I Am Legend was actually based on the film The Omega Man. Okay? And the Charlton Heston film, both of these films are all about the iris, Cyrus. The film I Am Legend was based on this Omega Man film. And remember, we identified that in Gnostic teaching, they actually consider Apollo to be the Alpha and the Omega. Now, to consider how blasphemous this is, see all these Gnostic sites. I am the Alpha and the Omega, Apollo. This is blasphemous because only God is the Alpha and the Omega, not Apollo. Here you see in the Bible, in Revelation 22, God says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. He says it again in Revelation 1:8. So imagine the blasphemy of this, a pagan god claiming the Alpha and the Omega. So, both films, Omega Man and I Am Legend, are about irises. And I hope you know what I'm saying when I say that. Both main characters use their blood to cure the world. And in the Omega Man film, Charlton Heston basically starts drawing blood out of his arm, and he goes and tries to cure people with it. The same exact thing happens in I Am Legend, and they call this convalescent plasma, is what they call this, where you take a person's blood and you use it as a cure. It's actually a really old method of doing things from way back when. Well, we talked about convalescent plasma and what they're actually looking into in terms of the Kuru Rona. And they're looking at cures for it through convalescent plasma from the people in China who contracted it, right? And I told you that that was coming. Well, guess what? Here we are a month after we talked about that. And here is Mr. and Mrs. Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, who wish to donate their plasma for the Kuru Rona VC. Now, think about how creepy this is. If they use their blood, that would mean that Hanks and Rita Wilson will now be part of the world. All those people who take this thing for the rest of your life. This is creepy. Talk about an ego. Talk about creepiness factor times 100. So, convalescent plasma. Now, you got to go onto my other channel, Reloaded, and you can pull up all these videos that I did on I Am Legend as the Kuru Rona started to kick off, all the way back to just after the Super Bowl. We were talking about all this on the other channel. We're not on that channel now, of course, but we're here now. So this is weird. Now, the creepy thing about this is both of these films, Omega Man and I Am Legend, are Christ mockery films. Okay? Now, here's Will Smith. And they depict here what appears to be the crucifixion. There's Christ in the middle, except Will Smith's not Christ, right? And here are the two thieves, the two pillars at his side. Underneath his feet are books. Those represent you and I. We're the books. We come from the trees of the knowledge of good and evil. And they got us in a square, in a book, locked in a cube. And our whole life is in that book. That's why when they talk about book burnings, they're really talking about humans. And we saw book burning going on in I Am Legend, and we saw it in Omega Man. So, both characters are pictured in the crucifixion position. Think about the blasphemy of this. That was Will Smith. This is Charlton Heston, once again, in the crucifixion position. This is at the end of the film, in like an altar, and he's bleeding out because he kept trying to use his blood to save everybody. And really what this is blasphemy about Christ using his blood to save all of us. You see how this works. The metaphors here are undeniable unless you just choose not to believe the Bible or choose not to understand what I'm saying. Now, in the film I Am Legend, there's many Apollo references. We covered that on the other channel. He's obsessed with the sun. He actually opens up an almanac and basically shows the position of the sun, where it would be on Apollo's birthday, December 25th. Now here's where things get creepy, because the media has a history of announcing major Irish-related stories on the October 20th and 21st mirror date. It's very bizarre. Watch this. CNN. Anti-Cyrus tech moves forward. This is October 21st, 1997. So here they're talking about first glimpse of computer anti-Cyrus technology modeled on biological immune systems. See how the two are connected? The complex system goes far beyond traditional anti-Cyrus software and its ability to identify new types of viruses and sniff out almost instantly by devising a cure and distributing it around the world in minutes. Now they're talking about a computer Cyrus here, but really what they're talking about is a physiological one. And again, this is October 21st. There's something about this date. Here's another date, and it's probably because it's the opposite of March Friday the 13th. Here's another one. New computer Cyrus found in Aldous programs. This was October 20th, 1988. They found a new Cyrus program software by Aldous Corp. Here's another one. In this particular date of October 20th, 21st, they talk about a missing Cyrus detected dozens of children. It paralyzed them with this polio-type illness. This is from University of California, San Francisco. Again, this launched October 21st, 2019, just before all this hit. Missing Cyrus detected in dozens of children paralyzed by polio-like illness. They have a preoccupation. Here's another one. Now, there's a film called The Howling. That came out on Friday the 13th, 1981, 39 years ago. And they were talking about, they had the smiley face, and it was all about werewolves who infect people with a bite or a scratch. There's something about this date. And we'll get down to the bottom of this, just like we uncovered the smiley face. We decrypted that and saw what was going on with that. They're saying that this Cyrus came out, was paralyzing children. Okay. So, Monday, we'll be live again, and we're going to check out a Doctor Who episode that released on September 10th, 2011, 9 years ago. I'm going to say that again. September 10th, 2011, 9 years ago. And if you just write all that down, you'll see exactly what that's encoding. And it's all about a Panda-demic, forced VCs, and a girl who's trapped in a time loop. And I hope you guys can all make that show, because it's chilling what I've found. I put together a montage. We'll discuss that montage on Monday. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about this opportunity in France. Let's close this up. It's looping. Hope everyone is having a good Friday morning so far. All right. There we go. Okay, thanks everybody for coming to the show. Let this chat catch up. All right, so what's going on over here? Okay, so many of you know the story. I was in France for a year and a half on a spiritual journey. I'd actually planned on staying there forever, you know. I met Mark through my YouTube channel. Many of you know who Mark is. Really nice guy. And immediately, we had a connection, a spiritual connection, and I felt like I could trust him, and he could trust me, and we became best friends. I went out to France. I documented all of this. Some of it's here on this channel, someone's on the other channel. We did probably 20-30 videos while I was in France, just showing you France, but the work really never stopped. We did other decodes and stuff, but a lot of the videos were also trying to show you how to live off grid and find a way out of the matrix, right? Find a way out of being beholden to these unfair laws and having things forced on you, or being inside of a very populated city where they can wreak havoc on your personal rights. So, did that for a year and a half, and to be honest with you, I just kind of started missing my kids. And also, I realized, and my mom is getting up in years, and also, you know, if you're not in the right mindset, such an experience can be somewhat isolating. It's really something you want to probably do with a significant other, okay? It would be a lot of fun to do this with a significant other. So obviously I didn't have that out there, and so there you go. Now, Mark is in a position now where he and his family really don't go out to the properties very much. He lives in England. The properties are in France. So it costs him time and money to get out to the properties in France, and really his family doesn't enjoy doing that for multiple various reasons. And so it has become a chore for him to kind of go out there, because pretty much he shows up and he's just fixing stuff and mowing lawns and upkeeping the property without really being able to enjoy it, because his family's back in England and he's over there. And there's things he has to keep up with the property and all this red tape. You got to pay the locals. There's like taxes and things on the property, and that costs him several $1,000s a year. So I went out there and I was giving Mark about $300 a month, and that covered his costs to operate the properties, so that he didn't lose them, but also he wasn't gaining anything on them either. And that's kind of the way he wants it. He doesn't want to get rid of the properties. He wants to hold on to them because his dad left those for him. And that was kind of a sad time, because just after I got to France, his dad passed away. So the point is I'm not there anymore. And those properties are just sitting there, wide open for anyone who wants to go there and hang out. Now, I was there a year and a half. I was way past my legal time to be there. I didn't get harassed or stopped or talked to or anything. And when I went to leave, there were no problems. They even actually stamped my passport, and if I wanted to come back, I could come back. I won't probably be going back, at least not for any other reason than just to visit. But what that means is those properties are sitting there open. And if you're serious about really just wanting to get away, here's an opportunity. It's a gift to just go out there and hang out. Okay? Now, Mark just doesn't leave you out there to fend for yourself. When I was there, of course, we were best friends. He would show up, and, once every 3 or 4 months, he would show up, and hang out with me for a week, and we'd get some work done. He fix plumbing and stuff like that. And so that's the story. So I wanted to extend that to you guys. Mark doesn't have as many people on his YouTube channel. It's Yahuwah's word is king. And I know he's already put this offer out there, but no one's really taken it. There's a couple people, or actually one person, who's actually considering and in the works of wanting to be at least one of the properties. But then there's another property out there. So this is why I'm discussing it with you guys, because we do have a reach, and I care about each and every one of you. And if you're on some kind of income where you get $1,500 a month, or you could survive. I survived out there. They shut down this main channel, and pretty much everything I got from ad revenue from the channel that I had left, I gave to Mark. I maybe kept $100 a month, and believe it or not, I was able to survive out there for a year and a half on that income. So you don't need a lot of money to be out there, okay? You probably, at the minimum, I would say, if you had some kind of income coming in of about $500 a month, you give Mark 3 and you kept 2, you'd be just fine. There's a little, you kind of have to go and watch the videos that I did on France on this channel and the other one to get a feel for what it is. It might not be what you think it is, okay? One thing I wasn't really expecting was there was a weird feeling that I got of being in someone else's country and not completely being equipped with language and different things like that. But you have to understand that Mark and I were still figuring all this out together. Now it's all set up. There's internet. There's, everything you pretty much need is out there. Up until a couple months ago, even the car that I bought was out there. So Mark traded me out for the car, and he had to sell it because, it was just another liability. But I bought that car when I first got there with the last of my savings. I bought that car for €1,400, which is like $1,700. So you could buy a car when you got out there, and you could buy a scooter or whatever you want to buy, So these are just ideas. I went and did it. I know a lot of people might be in a position where they want to do something like this. And this is why I'm offering it. I would be a very selfish person if I didn't say, wow, hey, if you wanted to do something like this, hey, it's available for you guys. So that's where things stand with that property. And wouldn't it be amazing if one of you guys went out there and you did YouTube videos and the same chickens are still out there, you guys. They're still in the chicken coop. The very same chickens. They're still alive and they're producing eggs for the neighbors. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I was in my 40s. I got in pretty good shape because I was mowing lawns. There's a couple acres on one of the properties. It was on a lake. The lake's now been drained. So there's like a little river that goes through there. And it's probably grown in with some trees. You might not even be able to see the river at this point. But let me blow this up because I can't really see the chat. But what I wanted to tell you is there's some work to be done. Part of the agreement is to make sure the lawns are mowed, the hedges are trimmed. Okay, so you got to have some physical ability to at least mow a lawn, push a mower, and that kind of thing, and trim hedges and that kind of thing. So I was able to do it. It was pretty intense work for me though. But if you're one of those kinds of people who's very physical, that also helps Mark. Now, Mark didn't shy away. When he would come out from England, we would do it together. We would mow the lawns and trim the hedges. So it's not that big of a deal. It's not like you have to do all the work. And he's like a carpenter, so he can fix stuff. And we worked on little projects, and we did some plumbing and stuff like that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought this was probably a good opportunity. It's Friday. Like I said, one subscriber, she's kind of trying to get her passport right now, and she might go out there. But there's 2 properties, and Mark's at the point where he really wants to hold on to these properties. The other alternative was he was going to have to basically give them away because he doesn't even have the means to, get a real estate person, nor does he want to, because it would be too much trouble and work. He was just going to let them go. But this way he can hold on to those properties, and you could also have an amazing experience living in the French countryside. So where is this place? Well, now that I'm not there anymore, I can give you a little bit more detail on where this place is. It's actually in a French village. Maybe I shouldn't say the name of the actual village. But the little village I lived in only had 1,100 people in it. Little tiny village. Great neighbors. You can see the neighbors on one of my YouTube videos. They actually helped me clear my plumbing because I had a blockage because of a bush that roots had overgrown into it. And the neighbor had called up a plumber who then cleared the pipe out for me for like €50, which is like $60. So really cool neighbors, helped us out of a lot of situations. So there's that. And you could probably get away with the bike, which would get you 2 blocks down to the little store, but there's kind of limited resources in there. Now I will say, if you're a food snob, this might not be the place for you, okay? Because they eat different food there. It's not terrible food, and they do have lots of vegetables and stuff. But if you're used to like little snacks that you like, things like that, then this isn't going to be the place for you. You're not going to find peanut butter, for instance. There's no corn. There's no corn on the cob. There's weird things that they don't have that you would think that they would have. But it's a funny thing because here in Connecticut, it's kind of the same thing. Like, they don't have certain things. Like, one of my favorite snacks was peanuttles and red vines, and they don't have those here in Connecticut. You have to order them like online, right? So, it's the same everywhere you go. Now, am I glad to be back in the United States? I think for me personally, yes, I'm glad to be back here only because I feel a little bit closer to my children, who I hopefully one day want to get a lot closer to, And my mom, she's in her 70s, and so I want to, be close to her too, and not feel so like out there, because it is a journey. Okay, it's a journey. Now, Mark, when I first showed up, man, it was crazy. Like I flew into London, And Mark and I hopped in his little truck, and we put he bought a canoe for the lake. We put that on top of the truck, and we drove onto a ferry. We went across the English Channel, and all this is in videos here on the channel. And it was like I think it was about, the ferry was an overnight ferry, and then it was another 3 or 4 hours to the property. So it's like a 10 or 12 hour journey if you take the ferry. You drive the truck right off of the ferry, and you drive like 3 hours, and you're at the property. Property is in the north of France. The islands, I think it's called Guernsey, off the coast of France. Well, it's kind of in that area. It's very close to the Le Mont Saint-Michel Castle, which is a very famous castle that's in movies and stuff like that, because when the tide comes up, it's surrounded by a moat. It's surrounded by a real water, tide water, and you can't get across unless you go over the drawbridge. So that's pretty cool. So that's where it's in. That's the area it's in. It's a little bit remote. It's very far from Paris. It's probably 4 or 5 hour drive from Paris. And you probably don't want to be in Paris right now because of the whole yellow vest thing. So, as soon as all this opens back up, if it ever does with travel, this might be an opportunity for one of you guys, And then maybe you'll have a neighbor with the person that's actually looking into it right now and getting pretty serious about wanting to go out there. Thanks, DJ. It's called Guernsey. So it's not on an island. It's just in that general part of France. Okay. So let me go in the chat, because I'm sure you guys have some questions about all this. Now for food, I probably spent €80 a month in food. I probably could have got by with a little bit less. Toward the end, though, I was buying like more food, because I was like, you start working and then you get hungry. And you have your internet. I live stream from there several times with Mark, that kind of thing. Now, it's also, I wanted to tell you, it's probably a different environment now with all this going around. It's not going to be like it was, where you can stay past your visa for extended periods of time. So that you have to look into, and you have to look at what risks you're willing to take, and so on and so forth. Okay, in the atmosphere of what's going on in the world right now, I pretty much didn't care. I was like, I need to do something for me. I need to do something to just switch things up. I also need to show the people on my channel the life you can live. That there is a way out if you don't have something that's anchoring you down where you're at now. Okay, so, all right. Oh, thanks, K-Mister says, how are you this morning? I'm great. Thank you. It's Friday, so Fridays are always awesome. Okay. Yeah, I guess the neighbors got ducks, too. There were ducks out there. Last time Mark went, he took some video, and there was they got ducks that are hanging out with the chickens, so that's cool. Yeah, there's Aldi, there's Lidl. Those are the grocery stores, which are some of the same chains that are the different parts of our country. I know there's an Aldi here, Connecticut. And so they have some of the same brands that they do here in America at Aldi. All right. Just reading the chat here. Love all of you guys. Sarah says she's might be interested. That's cool. Oh, so the way you find out about this is talk to Mark directly. So we don't get anything lost in translation. His YouTube channel is right on the front of my channel. It's in the recommended videos, right on the front of my channel page. It's called Yahuwah's Word is King. And just send him a message, and say, hey, I'm really interested in doing this. I can give you $300 a month for the utilities. Now, if you stay at one of the properties and not the other, those costs are going to go down. Okay, It's not going to be $300 a month. It's going to be like 175 or 200. So you see how this is like a dream? If you have some kind of income coming in, this would be something very, very fun to do. If you were in a position to go do this, it's basically free housing, basically, because you're just paying for just the utilities that you're using, pretty much. So, now one of the properties does not have internet set up yet, but I'm sure that Mark would have that set up if, and that's the one that's on the former lake. So he could set that up because there was internet there. It's just that he disabled it. Things have changed, back then, I think he was really hoping his family would come out there with him, and he wanted to kind of keep the actual house that was on the lake as kind of a memory of his father. There's a lot of pictures and things there and personal items, but the house on the lake is absolutely stunning. It's got windows all across the back of the house that overlook this beautiful, lush green valley. It's very well lit. It's got satellite TV already hooked up, and it's got a boathouse. It's unbelievable. It's amazing. It's stunning. I mean, I felt like I was in a dream out there. But he could easily hook internet up out there, and I think things have changed, and I think he'd probably be willing to have someone move into that property as well, and he would just hook up the internet, and you guys would be good to go. So, all right. What else do we have here? So it's a journey, and I'm almost positive that if someone decided to go out there, Mark would, you could probably fly into London and he would take you out to the property. So it's not like you're just flying into Paris and you got to fend for yourself. No, he was really cool about helping me get there. And then when I had to leave, he helped me leave, like it wasn't just like, oh, good luck, like he's like, hey, no problem. I'll get out there and I'll take you back and we'll fly out of London. He took me all the way to the train station and all the way to the end until I got on the airplane to fly back to America. And I think I had a direct flight from London to like Oakland. I think it was only like $300. So $400, I think it was. So it's just a little bit of hope, for people. So there's always a way out, Sometimes we don't see the forest from the trees because we're locked in our prison and we're locked in fear, and we feel like, well, it's not even worth it, this life. Sometimes we feel like that. But like, imagine if you were in a position where let's say you were afraid and all this stuff's going on and you're like, man, God, do you really love me? Well, guess what? Maybe this is some news you heard today to know that God does love you. There is a way out, okay? There always is a way out. Now, so Boru's talking about Arkansas. Yeah, so I bought some property in Arkansas, really cheap. And I'm going to, over the course of the next several years, I'm going to build something on it. I don't want to tell you guys exactly where it is because I'll get harassed. For some reason, trolls love to harass me in my personal life, and so I hope to one day start sharing little bits of it with you guys. But basically, Arkansas was one of the only states that really resisted what's happening right now. All right, and pretty soon there's going to be nowhere to go. But over there, it's going to be. I think it's going to be great. So eventually, it's going to be the life, It's going to be awesome. Fishing, kayaking, the whole thing. It's really close to a large lake and a river. So I'm really looking forward to that. Okay. Look like a lot of you are from Arkansas. That's cool. Yeah, great weather there. It gets plenty of rain. There aren't no forest fires. Yeah, I think it's, if I'm going to be isolated, I'm going to be in the States, It's just, how do I say this? I don't want to speak bad about France because France is a beautiful place. It's not France. It's that you're in a different culture that you don't quite understand. And they have some French people can be a little bit upset because they're highly taxed. I think, what is it, 50 to 75% of their income is taxed. It's a very red tape kind of society where everything has to be perfectly done, very meticulous. And I think this spilled over all the way from the 1940s. That they were under this regime. And so basically, if you're not in their system, under their red tape, they can get a little irritated by that. Almost like seeing something out of place, and they want to fix it. So I was in this little town. And of course, you guys know I'm a black guy. I did not really fit in. I mean, they liked me, but I won them over with my personality, I think. And I'm not bragging, but I am a nice guy, and I get along with all different types of people from different cultures. And so my neighbor, he was the town mechanic, right? And he fixed everybody's car in the town. So he knew all the gossip. So he was like, his kids spoke a little English, enough to translate. And they told me that my dad had many customers come in wondering who this strange man was in their town and what I was doing here. But everything's okay. They've accepted you in because you're nice. So I was like, oh, really? Show my face. I have shown my face many times. You got to go look at the France videos. Just, all you got to do is go on the channel and type in France. You'll see my face all over there. I did live shows, and Mark and I did live shows together. Don't get hung up on the stuff that doesn't matter, you guys. You know, people want to stir the pot, and you know, I don't get on here and blast my face because I'm not an egomaniac. I don't need people to look at me, and I want people focused on my message, not me staring and yelling into a camera, okay? So that's why I don't get on the camera very often. I do at times when I feel like it. So, yeah, that was just last year, so this little town, you know, it can be a little bit unsettling at times because you're so far from home. You know that even if you wanted to get home, it would take you almost a day to get there. And there's little hoops you got to jump through. I had a particular experience where they started requiring that your trash be put in these certain bags. This happened while I was there. And in order to get the bags, you had to go to the local mayor, which is called a mairie. That's what they call them there. I think I'm pronouncing it right. And you have to go to this mayor, and in order to get the bags, you have to show that you're an actual resident of the city. So you have to show a bill that you've paid with your name on it. Well, of course, I didn't have that because I wasn't paying the bills in my name, and they didn't want to give me trash bags. You can't just use regular bags. They won't pick up your trash. So I was like, well, how do I get these bags? Well, they're like, well, you need to show us your passport. And so I was like, oh, brother, they're going to see that I'm way past my visa. And you got to just be careful with stuff like that. I just tended not to really interact with people much because if you think about it, if you're throwing it in their face that you're there past your visa, yeah, you're going to get deported. But if you're there and you're kind of on the down low and you keep trying to support the local community by shopping at their grocery stores and their farmers markets, then you should be okay, right? And that's what I did. I just maintained a low profile, and I had a lot of fun. The problem was there wasn't anyone to do it with, right? So that was the main thing. I had someone out there with me, a best friend or a girlfriend, to like walk through life with. That would have been the most amazing experience, you know, because then there's a motivation to go and hop in the car and go check out the next village or the next town. But when you're by yourself, it just really, I don't know, it's just different. You guys know what I'm talking about. So, someone says, Trump postponed Real IDs? He did? Really? Well, it needs to be postponed indefinitely. It needs to never, ever come about. Because that's going to change everything. So, I'll tell you this too. I never felt like unsafe. Like, the French people are a very docile kind of crowd. Most of them are very small people, and so they're very docile. And I mean, I didn't ever feel like someone was going to beat me up or take something from me. I mean, you have people that steal normally, sadly. Um, a lot of that came out of like vagrants, people that were just passing through. There was a large gypsy community that was nearby, and in France they allow people just to cruise around in an RV, in like an RV town, like a little mini city, and they kind of move from place to place. And I think that's probably a good thing, because we should have that right. But along with that and I'm not saying it always does, but can come an element of people that go out and kind of grift around and take things that are just sitting there. Okay. So that's all. That's all. And I didn't have anything ever stolen, or no break-ins. There's just that kind of stuff didn't really happen out in the country where I was anyway. All right. Let's see what other questions you guys have. Yeah, they're actually real gypsies out there. They call them travelers. Caravans, yes, exactly. And they'll pull up, and there's a bad element in everything, okay? Most gypsies are really cool people, You see them around. And but some, they'll pull up on someone's land and just kind of squat just because they don't think anyone's home. A lot of times they won't steal anything or do anything, but you might come home and find like a gypsy van on your property, and you're like, oh brother, what am I going to do now? Mary lives in Oklahoma. Yeah, that's right next to Arkansas. Needling catfish. Wow, I've seen videos of that. It looks amazing. See, I'd eat them because I guess they're an unclean fish. I don't know. Okay. Do I miss? Yeah, I miss the little chickens. I miss those. I mean, it's like having children, like the thing is you can't really leave for extended amounts of time. Now my neighbors, they pop over the fence. I think my hens actually loved the neighbors more than they did me, because the neighbors would throw over like half sliced cucumbers and stuff over the fence, and they'd be over there in the corner just going at it. And they never really bonded to me, I don't think. Like I've seen channels on YouTube with people with hens, and they can get the hen to like perch on their arm and all this stuff and come up to them, and they can hold them like pets. My hens weren't like that. They were just chilling out. They just really didn't give me the time of day. And so they become like children that don't love you back, right? I think they live like 6 years, I think. Something like that. It was funny, one of my hens was not producing eggs. I went through so many adventures with these hens, right? Because first they tried to like hide their eggs, right? They tried to hide their eggs. So one day I came out, I'm like, why aren't they laying eggs? Well, they were laying them under a sticker bush. They made like a little cubby hole outside of where they're supposed to lay them, which is in their little nest that I made for them. And I find this pile of eggs, like 40 eggs in a pile hidden in the bush. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I sealed it up. Then I got them to lay in the right spot. But by that time, it was like, oh my gosh, really? And so then one of them just decided, oh, I'm not going to lay eggs anymore. I mean, this was a brand new hen. I'm like, come on. You were laying them before. Now you just decided you're not going to lay them? So I went to the neighbor and I'm like, hey, man, this hen isn't laying. What do we do? So he has an egg in his hand. He throws it at me. And I drop it. I'm like, oh, man, what are you doing? It was a rubber egg. I mean, have you ever even heard of anything like that? He throws a rubber egg at me. It looked real. It was brown. It falls on the ground. It bounces all across the floor. And I go, what am I supposed to do with this? I go, I need real eggs. And he goes, come, come. And he takes me back and he sticks this rubber egg inside their little nest. And I guess it's called a decoy. So what it does is it makes the hen want to lay an egg if it sees one egg in its nest. Isn't that crazy? And it worked. So we used the rubber egg, right? So by the end of it, one of them still just wasn't laying. So I went back to the neighbor. And he goes, hey. I go, hey, this hen isn't laying. Can I just like eat her? And he looked like he's like, what? He goes, no. And I guess this is the difference in culture, right? He goes, you can't just eat her. Like, he wanted me to give her a chance, like 6 years I got to take care of this hen who's not laying eggs for me, right? And then I was like, oh, I get it. Okay. So, and then what else? There's just so many stories. The neighbors. I got to see the Tour de France while I was there. The neighbors came by and they're like, hey, again, they speak no English, so it was a little awkward. But they had their daughter translate in a note to me that they wanted to take me to the Tour de France. And I had no idea what I was in for. I didn't know. I go, what, are we going to Paris? I mean, like, what does this entail? He just said, be there 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. We're going to take you to the Tour de France. And I'm like, and I've got all this on video too on my channel. I actually have the Tour de France. And so I hop in the car, and he's got a ham sandwich and a cooler full of beer. And I was like, okay. We get in the car, and 15 minutes later, we're in this little town. And all of a sudden, oh, wait, what is going on with the chat here? There's the caravan comes through. He pulls out a ham sandwich, which is basically a slice of ham with butter on French roll. Now, I don't eat ham very often, but he pulls out a beer, and the beers there are like about 70% of the size of our beers here. And he gives me this beer. And next thing you know, the caravan comes through, which is the Tour de France. It's what comes before the peloton, which is the base core of riders. Okay, so the caravan comes through, and it's like it's like a parade, but it's like a parade on crack. I mean, they're flying through these streets doing like 50 miles an hour, and they're throwing promotional items and cookies and all this stuff and water off of these, basically what amounts to floats. They're like high-speed floats. And some of these things are huge. They're massive. And they're throwing this stuff, and it's just chaos. And I'm thinking to myself, man, if someone just shot out across the street, that would be the end of it. But people know. They get out of the way, right? So they were throwing all this stuff, and I'm like, wow, I'm actually like at one of the legs of the Tour de France. This is really cool. And then the riders come through, the leader, and then the peloton. They had helicopters flying overhead. It was pretty cool. So there's that. Uh-oh. I am sacred as Thomas is always drama in the chat. I consider just turning the chat off. It's very distracting sometimes. It's always drama, but there's so many of you who do behave that I just can't bring myself to do it. But thanks, Ozaro. Yeah, just time people out who are causing drama. You just time them out. I don't want to really block anybody, but just time them out so that we can all focus, have a nice Friday. So, yeah. All right. Yeah, cycling is really big in France. Really, really big. Like, it's like compared to what football is in America. Okay, it's like taken that seriously. Soccer is too, but really, it was mostly just cycling. Cycling. Everyone's into cycling. Everybody wants to be the next Lance Armstrong, Greg LeMond, whatever. Okay. I like interacting with you guys too, which is why I can't bring myself to do it. It's like our channel gets harassed. Like we can't go one day without some drama, and that can turn people away. As Christians, as believers, we really shouldn't be behaving like that. So, because people from the outside looking in look at that and they go, "Wow, these people are freaking horrible. They're judgmental. They disagree with everybody. They're fighting all the time." I don't really want that on my channel. So, yeah, it was a great time, DJ. It was a really good time. Mark and I would hang out, drink some beers. It's funny, they got all different kind of beers there too. They have beer that's like 1% alcohol or 0.5% for like hot days. It does get hot there, which is cool. And then there's a cold and rainy season. There's some snow even. So my dream is that a couple of you, as a result of this live show, can go out there and do your own YouTube videos and share your experience and have fun, and that would be just amazing. And I would watch every single one of your videos because it would be like memories for me, So all right. Yeah, you know what I'll do? Right after I'm done with this show, I'll re-upload one of my France videos for those of you that care. Most people, most people, I'm not going to say most, about half of you really don't watch my France videos. Just not fans. And that's fine, If only half the people on my channel are interested in that whole part of the journey, that's fine. At least some of you are. And so I'm going to go ahead and end the show because it looks like the drama has gone out of control again. I love each and every one of you. You guys, when we leave the show, just try to be better about that, Just don't go back and forth with people. It's just not worth it, okay? It's just a waste of time and energy. Sometimes you got to starve out the trolls just by not addressing them, so I know I could do a better job with that. But let's just try to be better, okay? Pray about it. I'll talk to you guys on Monday. Take care and be safe, everybody.